This video will give you a very brief overview of the most important aspects of the Dallas Buyers Club series of cases from 2015. Voltage Pictures, who owns the copyright in the Dallas Buyers Club, brought a case against iiNet in the federal court. Voltage had identified over 4,700 iiNet accounts that it claimed had unlawfully downloaded the film. They had the relevant IP addresses, but what they were seeking was the name and contact details of the subscribers who owned the accounts associated with those IP addresses. iiNet had said that it would not hand over those details without a court order. Justice Perham of the federal court agreed to grant the order requiring iiNet to hand over the subscribers' contact details, but on one condition. Voltage would have to submit to the court for approval any letter which it planned to send to the subscribers. Justice Perham was concerned about preventing one thing, and this was a practice that Voltage had engaged in overseas called speculative invoicing. Generally, the practice of speculative invoicing involves sending a letter to alleged infringers which states that infringement has been detected and giving the recipient a choice. They can either be sued for copyright infringement and fight the claim in court, a process which can cost tens of thousands of dollars, or they can pay to the copyright owner a one-off amount to make the claim go away. The amounts can vary, but normally this will be a few $1,000s. Recipients of these letters are generally intimidated into paying the amount, even if they have a colorable argument against infringement, because it's cheaper than going to court. Speculative invoicing has been criticized as a predatory practice. So the Australian Federal Court in the Dallas Buyers Club cases wanted Voltage to submit a letter intended to be sent out to any alleged infringers for court approval in order to prevent this practice. Now, there's several cases in this series of litigation, mostly due to some back and forth between Voltage and the courts about the contents of this letter. At first, Voltage tried to avoid specifying an amount in the letter. They instead said that recipients should call them to talk about their claim, and the court said that this was not transparent enough, that they needed the basis for any financial claims set out in the letter. So the next judgment that's really relevant for our purposes is number 4. And in this case, Voltage presented a letter to the court which they proposed to send out to iiNet subscribers, and in this letter they asked for payment under 4 different categories. The first was that they asked for the cost of purchasing a single copy of the Dallas Buyers Club movie. Second, they wanted a fee from the user for sharing the film to other BitTorrent users. So this was a kind of peer-to-peer file sharing license fee, and this would have been a very high amount given that films shared over BitTorrent are potentially shared to thousands of other users on the internet. Third, they wanted a fee related to any other copyrighted films that the subscriber admitted to downloading or sharing. And fourth, they wanted an amount to help cover the administrative costs of identifying and contacting those subscribers. The court held that Voltage could claim for the first and the last of these items. So they could claim for the cost of a single copy of the film and for administrative costs. but that the other two items about sharing the film over BitTorrent and other copyrighted films, these amounts were unreasonable to claim. So Justice Perham ordered Voltage to remove the second and third items from the letters before they could obtain approval from the courts. So what happened with this litigation? Voltage attempted to challenge the court's conditions, but they failed on this. Eventually, Justice Perham grew quite frustrated with them, and he set a date by which Voltage had to submit their final letter for approval. Voltage failed to submit their letter by that date, possibly on purpose, possibly to avoid a binding precedent in this case about what they could ask for. So what that meant was these series of cases, essentially the basis for the case fell over without any users being contacted at all about downloading the Dallas Buyers Club. But this series of litigation is important to be aware of for two main reasons. Firstly, Justice Perham was willing to go to some lengths to protect users from speculative invoicing, which is significant that the court was very careful to protect users in this case. And second, it's good to be aware of this because we're likely to see other attempts by copyright owners in the future to gain access to users' contact details in order to pursue copyright claims.